Good morning, everyone. It is the start of the Battle of the Bookish Skills Training Camp. I am so excited that we're doing this. If you guys are not aware, the Skills Training Camp for Battle of the Bookish is the first week-long readathon that we are doing for our Battle of the Bookish readathon. If you don't know what Battle of the Bookish is, it is a readathon that I host 2 times a year with some friends, and typically they are month-long readathons in January and June, and we decided that we wanted to, kind of leading up to the bigger rounds, throw in a week-long readathon that kind of would give everybody possible advantages for the larger rounds that we do, like I said, in January and in June. So this is our very first one. This theme is murder mystery because based on the winners of the last big round we did in June, they wanted to do a literary detectives theme for the next big round. So we decided that the week-long readathons are going to be involving that same theme that we're going to be doing for the larger rounds, and that's how we're going to kind of play them out. So this is going to be very exciting. This is the first time we've done even a murder mystery aspect with this, so I hope it all goes well. But I'm super excited. So I'm going to go over real quick the TBR I have for this coming week. So this is going over the course of today, Sunday the 23rd, to next Sunday the 30th. And then the 31st on Halloween, we are going to be actually releasing all of the results of like who wins, stuff like that. So the first book I have slated for Battle of the Bookish is My Soul to Keep by Tananarive. This is an ebook that I have downloaded from Kindle Unlimited, and this is counting for 2 prompts. This is counting for the fog and smoke prompt as well as the mystery thriller prompt. Then next I have The Merciless 4 by Danielle Vega. I read The Merciless 3 here earlier this month, and this is counting for the prompt of a book that scares you, because this one in particular deals a lot with like possession and demonic entities that are like taking over the bodies of different people, and so like a lot of times this gets really kind of scary, and it gets kind of just more so like shocking and terrifying because of like the kinds of descriptions that there are in this series. It's kind of off-putting. Next I have Geo by Junji Ito. This is counting for 2 prompts, which are for a read a book and a book with monsters or monster-like people, because this is dealing with some kind of like a monster that comes from the sea. It's some kind of like legged fish that just kind of appears and like starts to wreak havoc. Then finally the last one I have is a graphic novel or manga. I'm not quite sure how it's described, but it is Happiness Volume 1. This is going to be for also 2 prompts, the final 2 prompts I need to have for Battle of Bookish, and that is a book with autumn colors on the cover and a short book. So I have 4 books for this week, but I actually have 2 other books that I still need to read that I haven't really been able to yet. I need to get those done like first and foremost, so I still think I should be able to get through all of these because they're fairly short. Even the manga, this one's a little chunkier, it's still pretty manageable, so I think I could still get these done. It's going to really depend though, because this week I also am finally finishing up my time working at a remote position, the work from home position I've had now for almost 3 full years. I have my last day on Friday, and I have to drive out over an hour and a half to the office and finish that up, and then basically the weekend is a 3-day weekend for me because of the fact that my new job doesn't start until Tuesday the 1st, because they don't have the office open on Sundays or Mondays, but they're open from Tuesday to Saturday. Today is my editing day for content and stuff, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to read, but I'm going to try my best and hope that over the course of the week I can get more done at least before next Sunday, because next Sunday is kind of like the day where things are going to be a little bit more crazy, so we shall see. But I'm very excited for this round of Battle of the Bookish. It's going to be something brand new, so bear with us if you're, been around for a while and this is all new, because of the fact that this is new to us. So we are trying this out, we're seeing how it is. People have been wanting a week-long readathon for a while, and so we really wanted to try to do that this time, and I think it's going to go pretty okay. It's just going to depend on, I think, how the other teams kind of play out. So I ended up taking on the team of Harry Dresden, which means that if I do have a book that I end up wanting to DNF, the team perk I have is Kaboom Magic, so I do get to count a DNF for the full points of what I would have given it, for a prompt or something. I don't think that's going to be the case for any of my books, but that is the team perk, and you can use it if you'd like. You don't have to. But I'm really excited because this is going to be, like I said, a brand new thing. We're going to see how this plays out, and ultimately the winner of this, whichever team ends up guessing the correct murderer in the murder mystery, they're going to get a pretty good advantage for the next round, which is going to be really exciting. So I can't wait. But anyway, I got to get some stuff done this morning so that I can spend the rest of the day working on, you know, other stuff and hopefully trying to read. So I will speak to you guys a little bit later when I have some kind of an update. Hey guys, so it is going on, I think, 20 to 9 in the evening on Tuesday. Let me double check that. Oh, actually going on 8:45. It's been a crazy couple days. So first of which, I am about done with my second book for this week, which is good. Did not count for anything like prompt-wise that I was looking for Battle of the Bookish, which is fine. Nor for Vampathon, which started up on Monday. Sorry I'm out of breath. I just got all my stuff upstairs to do a little bit of filming and stuff because my husband went to bed early. He's not feeling very well, so I figured I'd take the opportunity to come upstairs and do some stuff up here that I've been needing to do for a little bit. Namely, just going through like my physical library again and making sure it's updated in my spreadsheet, all that stuff. But earlier today, I ended up finishing A Fiancee's Guide to First Wives and Murder by Diane Freeman. This is book 4 in the Countess of Harley mysteries. I'm going to talk more about this in my Finisher DNF video because in that video I am talking about this series in particular, and I did give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I do think that basically with being pretty much at like the very end of the last book that currently is out, that the third book is so far my favorite, but I still really enjoy this series. I think it's very fun, and I really enjoyed this one. This did count for page points for Battle of the Bookish, which is nice, but it did not have any prompts or anything with that. And then, like I said, I'm basically in the process of finishing A Bride's Guide to Marriage and Murder, which is the 5th and so far final book. Apparently sometime in 2023, like around June 2023, there is another installment in this series coming out. I did not know that, but apparently this one just came out this year. So I'm not surprised to know that there's another book coming out. It makes me kind of happy that there's going to be at least one more book in this series because I really do like this series a lot. I've really grown to love it. And I do think that Diane Freeman is going to be an author that I keep my eye out for. Really like this one as well. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm basically in like the last chapter and a half, I think, of this. I don't have very long of the audiobook left. I think I have like 15 minutes of the audiobook left. So very happy to get this one done. And this one I got through in pretty much the entire day. So I finished up this one and then read the entirety of this one in a day because I finally managed to get the audiobook for this one on Scribd. It just became available today. So I was able to get through the last like hour and a half of this through the audio, and then I spent the rest of the day working on this one. And then my first read for Battle of the Bookish that I'm going to be starting here in a minute is going to be My Soul to Take. It is a book by Tananarive. This is also a book that I wanted to read for Black Aweenathon and for Vampathon as well, I believe. This is a really good mystery thriller to a lot of people. Tananarive is a really popular author, especially one that is BIPOC, so I'm very excited to read this. I've heard that her other works are really good and creepy, so I hope that I like this one enough to want to read more of her stuff in the future. But this will be my first official book for Battle of the Bookish that will be counting for prompts. This one is counting for a book with fog and smoke on the cover and also a mystery thriller. I don't remember what this is counting for Black Aweenathon, nor what it is counting for Vampathon off the top of my head, so I'll have to let you guys know that probably tomorrow with when I have an update for this. But for right now, I need to go ahead and finish up the last of A Bride's Guide to Marriage and Murder before I can film my Finisher DNF video so that I can finally wrap that one up for this month and just have it finally done. And then I have to take these books back tomorrow to the library, so very excited for that, but gonna be easy, like 15 minutes more of reading, and we're gonna kind of go from there. So I will see all of you guys tomorrow with a proper update for my first book for Battle of the Bookish. Okay, I don't know how much battery I have left on this exactly, so this may cut out at some point, but Today is Thursday, October 27th. It is my second to last day of working remotely, and I've got a bit of an update. So I did finish A Bride's Guide to Marriage and Murder. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, just like I did with Fiance's Guide to First Wives and Murder. Really liked it. More of my thoughts on that will be in my Finish Your DNF video. That's what that is. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Then I also got through the entirety yesterday of My Soul to Keep by Tananarive. This was my first official book for the Battle of the Bookish skills training camp. This was for the prompts for a mystery thriller as well as a book with fog or smoke on the cover. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed this. This one basically is the first book in what's called the African Immortals series. And you learn that this follows a couple. This man named David, he supposedly, you find out very early on, is from a immortal race of people. He was basically turned immortal 500 years before, and his name is Dawit. And Dawit has had many relationships over the course of his lifetime, which goes against what his group of immortals do. The group of immortals he is a part of are very much kind of stoic, monk-like almost in some capacity, if you want to think of it that way, because they spend a lot of time doing like meditation and enlightenment stuff, things like that. And they're not really supposed to have families, especially because of the fact that they don't want to keep bringing on more, you know, immortal children. And the further that time goes on with science and stuff, people are going to start finding out that, you know, there's people who can heal super well, because one of the perks of being immortal is that if they injure themselves, they kind of regenerate really quickly. And Dawit ends up becoming married in like the late 1900s to a woman named Jessica, who they then have a child named Kira. And Dawit finds out that essentially his old group are coming to get him. They think that he has kind of been outing the group in a sense unintentionally. There's been a lot of deaths surrounding this family where like people and animals have been dying left, right, and center, and it's threatening the exposure of this group. And so they say you either need to get rid of them or you need to like turn them immortal in some capacity. And Dawit is working on being able to figure out how to make them immortal, because part of his story is finding out that he understands that his blood can be used to bring things back to life. If he kills them, he can use his blood to essentially make them reborn. And so he plans on doing that with his wife and his daughter. And Jessica is none the wiser. She doesn't know anything that's going on. All she knows is that the people that she cares about the most seem to be dropping like flies, and she doesn't understand what's going on. And then as things kind of progress, you see that she's starting to see her husband being kind of more somehow involved, but she doesn't know exactly how. This story is creepy. It is incredibly disturbing purely based on the fact that Dawit is like a very overprotective, overbearing husband. Like, he, to me, gave off such awful vibes from the get-go. Like, possibly not necessarily narcissistic, but definitely very disturbed. And that was before understanding that he was an immortal. But I say why this was highly recommended by people that were getting ready for Black Aweenathon, because this is one of the books that was highly recommended for the course of Black Aweenathon, which was going on over the course of the entirety of October. And I definitely understand why people have been saying that, you know, Tananarive is a really good BIPOC author that people should be getting into, because Tananarive's writing is very, I don't know, like it's creepy. Like the way that she constructed Dawit was immaculate. Like the way that it was described when he was talking about his immortal life, and like we get flashbacks of Dawit's different experiences over the course of his lifetime. And it was just so interesting. I can't really put into words how exactly this was written, because of the fact that like it's one of those books you have to kind of experience it for yourself to really understand. The feeling that Dawit gives is like absolutely terrifying. It is absolutely disturbing how much he seems like such a great guy, and then the further you go on, he just becomes more and more monstrous. And I really enjoy that. I think that that was absolutely amazing, and I really loved this writing. I definitely would like to read more from this series in particular, and also read more from Tananarive, because I've heard nothing but good things about her writing from various BIPOC creators, especially those that are in like horror, because apparently she's a really good horror writer. So I think I will be picking up more from this author for sure. And then last night I did get started on my next read, which is the fourth and final book in the Merciless series, which is the Merciless 4 Last Rites by Danielle Vega. This is also for the Battle of the Bookish Skills Training Camp. This is going to be counting for the prompt of a book that scares you, because this usually series deals with some kind of exorcisms or something, basically in the sense where like there is demonic entities involved that are taking over people. The Merciless 3 I read earlier this month and I really liked it. I think it was such an interesting prequel to the series, because technically the series goes where the Merciless and the Merciless 2 are direct, sequels. The Merciless 2 is a direct sequel from the first one. The Merciless 3 is called Origins of Evil, and it is a prequel to the Merciless because of the fact that it follows a character, Brooklyn, who in the first book is who the group is trying to exorcise a supposed demon out of. And you learn about how that's possible and what exactly happened to her leading up to that first book. This one is, again, more of a sequel to the second book, but this is technically a spin-off in the sense that this is following a completely different character, but we see the main character from the first two books, Sophia, in this book. This, though, is following a character named Berkeley, who was at the same institute that Sophia was sent to, like a mental institute, and Berkeley is rooming with Sophia. So when Sophia comes to room with her, there's some things that happen, and we see things as she's at the institute after Sophia moves into her room, and after, when she's actually out of the institute and on a trip to Italy to visit a couple of friends who are in Italy for the summer for an art program. And over the course of the story, I'm assuming that there's going to be something from the institute that's going to like come back to haunt her or something. I don't know. But very true to the setup that there has been with other books, there is immediately a connection with a male character. Berkeley, while she is in Italy, goes to a party with her friends and meets a guy named Giovanni who everybody swoons over, and he dances with her at this club and they end up kissing. And it's very likely this is going to be our male love interest very early on. This is not something that is new for me when it comes to these books. The male love interests come in usually pretty quickly. And I'm going to assume that Berkeley is an experienced young woman. So, because they talk about too how she actually is of college age. She was in college, you learn, and the reason she went to the institute in the first place is because she was at a college party, got super high, and had like a complete freak out and pulled a knife on some guy. And that's why she was sent to the institute. So like, obviously she's old enough to have like these kinds of relationships. She's old enough to be able to take care of herself in a lot of ways. But obviously with going to Italy 7 months after leaving the institute, her parents are like, I don't know, this is the best idea, like something could happen, which obviously something's going to happen because that's the point of the story. But yeah, so I'm really excited for this one. I hope that this one's going to end up on a good note because this is the last book in this series. And all the books so far have been really fun. They're definitely that cheesy kind of YA slasher torture porn kind of thing, but this has been very fun. It's fast-paced, it's quick to fly through, and I actually kind of like some of the characters throughout this series, and I'm curious to see what's been going on with Sophia, because from what I remember of the last book I saw her in, which was book 2, things were really, really bad for her, like, to the point where, like, there's a reason she was sent to the institute. And it seems in this book, she's kind of hardened herself up, like, bad. Like, she went from this really sweet girl that went through a very traumatic thing in the first book to then having more trauma placed upon her in the second book because of things that I will not reveal that she had no awareness of. And then this one, it's like, okay, she's kind of acting as if she's this hardened criminal, which she's not, but she's just dealt with a lot of stuff over the last couple of years basically for her. So yeah, this is going to be interesting, but I will update you guys a little bit later when I have finished this one. I think after this one, I have 3 more books to get through. One of them, though, was for a book club that actually ended up getting pushed to being a bi-monthly book club, so I don't have to finish it this month if I don't have the time. I will be able to get into it more so in November, which I think I'm going to. So I technically only have 2 books I need to complete for this month, which is good, which is this one, and then a manga, and then another manga. So I think I should be able to get all these done by the end of this week, which will be fantastic. I can get all of my books for the readathon done, and if I have time at the end of the month, get started with that book club book and go into November with it. So I think we're doing pretty all right. Okay, so it is now going on 10 o'clock at night. I should be in bed, and I'm going to be going to bed here soon because I have to get up very early tomorrow to head to the office and have my last day at work. So I did, though, just finish The Merciless 4 by Danielle Vega. Practically read this in almost an entire day. Had a little bit of it read last night and then basically finished it today. 4 to 5 stars. I really like this series. I mean, do not get me wrong, it is YA, very kind of like torture porn kind of idea again with this series, but this was really interesting. The twist that happens by the end of this was, I wouldn't say predictable, but it did kind of follow what we've seen with the other books in this series, if that makes sense. So it wasn't like 100% a surprise, but the way in which that the twist is developed and how the actual story of what happened to Berkeley before going to the Institute, like that was a little intense. And I like the fact that this ends a little open-ended, where like you can see where there would definitely be more going into this series, but this is the last book as far as I'm concerned. And I think that there was a reason for that. I think that this ultimately is the end of the story for Sophia, who we know of in books 1 and 2. Because again, this is kind of like a spin-off. Sophia we haven't seen since book 2 when she was taken to the Institute. And this kind of is like the story of not just what happens to her, but specifically the roommate she has in the Institute, and it's for a very specific reason. And then book 3, Origins of Evil, was the prequel going into Brooklyn's story, who we learn about in the first book, The Merciless. So I like the way that the story was kind of set up. The problem is that when you get into these stories, though, until you read Brooklyn's story, you don't really know how exactly this whole thing has been happening with like the exorcisms, like why these keep happening kind of thing. It's not until you get to Brooklyn's story that you really understand what's been going on. And then this one, like, it makes more sense as things have gone on. But it's so weird. It's kind of one of those things where, like, I think people, when they go to read this story, when they get to book 3, they're going to be really confused as to why it took so long to know what happens in book 3 and why could not have been book 1, and then the rest of them kind of go in chronological order. I don't know why. I don't know what exactly was the intent with that. I wonder if by the time book 2 came out, where maybe it was supposed to just be a duology of some kind, that Danielle had then got a lot of attention toward the series and then was asked to make a prequel, and then, you know, everyone then wanted to know what happens to Sophia. Like, this was already maybe like a third book that was being planned on, but there was somebody, like, you know, who we wanted to know what happened to Sophia when, you know, after she goes to the Institute. And I don't know, like, the structure of the whole series is interesting. I'd be curious to know from her perspective why it was the way that this was done. But really enjoyable. This was for the skills training camp prompt for a book that scares you. So that's done. I'm going to be getting to bed here really soon, but I did want to let you guys know that I am going to be picking up another book here tomorrow. I am going to basically be taking my Kindle, which has one manga, and I'm going to take my other manga, which is Geo, because these are the last 2 books I have to read for the month of October. So there's this one, and then there's Happiness Volume 1. Now, technically for Weekend Ween, because these are also part of Weekend Ween, I have to do a coin toss for which one of these ends up being the winner. Like, that's one of the things with Weekend Ween, is you have to do a coin toss to see which one of the 2 books that you're going to be reading this weekend are going to go first. So we will figure that out sometime tomorrow. I'll let you guys know what that ends up being. There's a fuzz that's flying around in front of my face. But it's either going to be this one or Happiness Volume 1. Both of these, though, are counting for the skills training camp. Geo is counting for read a book and a book with monsters or monstrous people. And then Happiness Volume 1 is for my autumn colors book and a short book. So these are going to get me even more points. These are my last 2 books for the entire month. And then, if at all possible, by the end of the month, but probably not going to be in this vlog, I'm going to hopefully start Upon a Burning Throne maybe sometime Saturday, if not tomorrow, because this one's a fairly short manga, and then the other one's even smaller, but I just don't know if I'm going to get to this one until Saturday or Sunday, but we shall see. We will see. If I can get started on this by the end of this week and by the end of this vlog, that would be awesome. But like I said earlier today, I did find out that this has been pushed back to being talked about in November for the Royally Booked Book Club that I am doing with Princess from Castle Library. It's her book club. She has decided to make it a bi-monthly book club as opposed to a monthly one, because especially with this one being so chunky, a lot of people were having a hard time with it. The book itself is like not quite 700 pages, so like it's feasible, but especially for me, it turned out to be perfect timing because I was not going to have this done by the discussion we were going to have for it. So I have heard though that it's really cool and that there is this kind of like rivalry of some kind that is enveloped in this, which I'm excited for. This also was a recommendation from one of my, actual personal friends in real life that I've had since I was in elementary school. She recommended this to me. It's one of her favorite fantasy series, so I'm very excited for this one, but we'll get to this one later this week. For right now, I'm going to go finish packing up my bag for tomorrow, and then I have to get up around 5 a.m. to take a shower and get ready, and then be out of the house by like 6 o'clock maybe at the latest. I'm gonna stop yabbering and I'm gonna head out for right now. So I will speak to all of you guys at some point tomorrow. I don't know when. I have no idea. So wish me luck. Last day tomorrow, and then I have the 3-day weekend, and then I start my new job on the 1st. So yay. Hey guys, so it's been a hot minute since I've even updated this vlog. I apologize. It's been a very crazy couple days, but I'd like to tell you that I think last I updated you, I had just finished the Merciless 4, and Friday, which was my last day at my first big girl job, I did end up actually completing 2 books. I first off did the coin toss for Weekend Ween, which Geo was the first book to win between this and Happiness Volume 1. Geo, like I said, won, and I read the entirety of Geo in the day, basically during my breaks, and I finished it up during my lunch, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really liked this. I thought this was very fun. I really disliked one of the main characters though, because she did nothing but complain her entire storyline, and it just got to be really annoying. But this is basically a horror manga that takes place in a world where there are these robotic, almost kinds of like insect fish. It's really hard to describe them. They come out of the sea and they smell basically like death, and the whole story is following 2 main characters as they're trying to figure out, for one, what has caused these things to come around, and 2, how can they stop it? And it's very much a story where like it doesn't necessarily end on a happy note, but maybe a hopeful one, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. This also, though, did count for Vampathon. So for Vampathon, this counted for a book to sink my teeth into, for Weekend Ween, the prompt of a monster book, and for Battle of the Bookish, to read a book in general, and then also a book that has monsters or monstrous-like things. I also forgot to mention that the Merciless 4 for Vampathon was for 2 prompts. It was for a book placed during school, and also a book that is a thriller. This technically was during the course of a summer program for an art school, so it didn't necessarily have like a bunch of school aspects to it, but the reason that the main character goes off to Italy in the first place is because she's going to go visit her friends who are a part of an art program through school, so it kind of worked but it was kind of stretching it. And then I did also read the entirety of Happiness Volume 1 during my lunch. I was able to basically finish off Geo and then started this straight away and was able to finish it before my lunch was up because it was a really short manga. This is the first volume in kind of a vampire story. I mean, this got like a 3-star, so this kind of has like a pretty good vibe on it from the first volume, but the idea is that it follows a kid who is bitten by a vampire, and this is a kid who's very awkward. He does not really have many friends in school. He's kind of looked at as like the gopher boy, if you will, for a lot of things. He's the kid that like everybody's like, oh, go buy my lunch, you know, those kinds of things. And when he's bitten by a vampire and he goes back to school, it causes a lot of issues. This is extremely like icky in some ways. Like, he makes mention of the fact that he can smell girls that are on their period because obviously he can smell blood, and so he can tell what girls are on their periods, all those things. It's just kind of gross. Just from like a female standpoint, it's kind of icky. And then there are scenes where it is talked about, like, or there's things that kind of happen on page, but like you don't see the actual event happen, but like the kid like masturbates. And it's not necessarily like bad by any means because every person does it, but it's just kind of one of those things where you're kind of caught off guard. It's much more adult sexual content than I was expecting. I didn't even know exactly what I was getting into with this. All I knew is it maybe had something to do with a monster, but this was a little bit more than what I was bargaining for. And I didn't necessarily mind the sexual content. I didn't necessarily hate the fact that he could smell which girls were on their period. It just kind of was weird to me because I've never seen that happening before in a book. That's never been something that's been like really mentioned, and especially in terms of vampires, I've never actually thought about that before. I think that this wasn't just really clear cut. Like, essentially the idea is that I think this kid is going to end up teaming up with the girl that bit him, that was the vampire, and like things are going to go from there because he keeps dreaming about her, he keeps like thinking about her. But this wasn't like necessarily something that was like super wowing. It wasn't something that I read and then I was like, I need the next one like immediately kind of thing. So it was kind of middling. I would be willing to try out at least another volume to see what my thoughts are on it, but it is just not my favorite graphic novel or manga I've read so far. But I guess we'll have to see if I can get through at least one more. Maybe I'll continue with it, but I don't really know at this point. For Battle of the Bookish, this one counted for a book that had colors that reminded me of autumn on the cover, and a book that was short. This also, though, counted for Gothtober, for a mood read, for Vampathon, for a spooky graphic novel, and this was my second Weekend Ween book that also had the prompt of a spooky graphic novel. So I've completed my Weekend Ween TBR. I have also completed my Battle of the Bookish TBR, which is really exciting. Today is the last day that people can get points in, and they have to tomorrow come up with the killer for the murder mystery, which is really exciting. This is now technically my Saturdays with my new job going forward, and so I want to try to make sure that I end these vlogs on Sunday so that on Monday when I go to edit stuff, like, it's done and taken care of, and I don't have to really worry about closing out the vlog or anything, especially if I can remember to sit down and film on Sundays. You know, that's a huge thing. So I want to end this vlog here, but thank you all so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already and you'd like to be and would like to see more content like this, go ahead and hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys!